Hey everyone, welcome. I'm trying to do a short project here today. Short being relative term, it actually took me quite a while to go ahead and put this together here and became a bigger task than I had intended. But what I'm going to be doing is going through the different aspects of the Way Hunter video settings and a couple other things as well within the settings that kind of relate. Hopefully you guys can use this to figure out and choose what's best for your settings for your system because everybody's different. But hopefully you can see that these visual comparisons will give you a better understanding and guidance on things, and maybe actually be a little bit eye-opening as well on some things that you think would be affecting the performance of the game, but may actually not. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get into it here. This first comparison is with everything maxed out. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through each of the individual resolutions in the game and show you a comparison between them all. Now, I'm going to be going from the lowest settings to the highest, but I'm going to be grouping them together here in the different aspect ratios, whether it's a 4x3, 5x3, 16:9, so on and so forth, because it's just better to do it that way than where they had it going through individually from left to right in the menu. The reason I did this is so that you can see the differences visually without jumping back and forth. You can actually do better comparisons this way, and it'll slowly start going from the most closest in to the furthest out, showing more detail as you go along. So just pay attention to that. Again, pick your appropriate aspect ratio and pick your appropriate resolution that you feel will handle your system best. But mind you, like I said, these are all set up on the absolute ultimate quality of the video. Everything's high or ultra, or I mean high, very high, ultra, whatever it is for the settings. So you can see this. Now mind you, obviously a lot of these tests I'm going to be doing through the course of this video are going to be based upon my resolutions, which is the the 31 whatever by, we'll get to it. Anyways, it's just under the 4K. It's under the max one here, and I'll try to address it here in a little bit. But that's based on my system here, all right, on what I'm using. So obviously this will change depending on yours, but again, take into consideration, grain of salt, do the best you can, pay attention to the differences and the nuances as you see them going through, okay? So choose accordingly. But that would be mine right there, the 3840 by 2160. That's the resolution I'm going to be using for most of my tests. This next test is just to go ahead and check the overall graphics presets quality between the low, medium, high, very high, and custom. Obviously some things will not change because there's only 3 settings between low, medium, high, so they'll just be based again on the overall setting menu there. Anything that goes above that for like ultra settings will be going under the custom settings, and you'll see that as we get into it here. In addition, you'll also notice that this is going to be something I'm going to use for the foliage, because I'm not going to do a separate setting for that. You'll see clearly here that more foliage coming in, so just use that as a context as well. Here we start on low. The things that point out here is the grass on the ground, the patchiness of it, and the trees on the left hand side, but kind of pay attention to the background as well. Coming into medium, you see that the grass fills in a little bit more, the trees also fill in a bit more. On high, again, more grass, and you'll see some of the shadows and stuff like that affecting things as well. Very high, we have even more foliage out there, so this is why I said we're using this for the foliage as well. I'm not going to do a separate thing for that. And finally, we have the ultra custom here. So there's your comparison between all the graphic settings overall. This next part is going to be checking the view distances between low, medium, high, and very high, and ultra. And I'm doing it through the binoculars initially because this is the best examples you'll be able to see clearly on what's happening. So starting out with low, there's nothing out there. Medium comes in. You see a little bit down there of the bushes coming into the field of vision. Going up to high, a couple more added, like about another 3 rows behind those. Very high adds about another 3 or 4 more rows behind them as well. And finally, ultra, you can see it gets all the way out there far distance. Now this is great for binoculars, but the question comes into what's happening next. Is it really worth it for a performance hit on your system from looking at the long distance like here? You can see the low. All right, medium. Now, for me personally, while yeah, you might, I have a using my TV as a big screen here, and as I add these things in, I'm not seeing as much detail from far away. Binocular is great, but from a distance, it's not so critical. And I'm going to do a comparison here in a second with the overlapping, so you can see the binoculars with the long distance scenes here. All right, so you can again do this comparison. Now the question comes down is this important to you to put the strain on your system for having the ultra settings on there versus not having ultra settings? Can you bump it down a little bit, whatever, right? Because are you actually going to notice that difference so far away? All right, and there's one more thing here I'm going to point out to make you kind of question, do you really need to set up the ultra settings? Here you start seeing things with the mountains and stuff like that, close range. I put arrows on some of the stuff to see for the different settings. Low, medium popped in a couple more things here. High, you see one like way out there. And then obviously when it gets to the very high and ultra, it's negligible. There's like nothing you can really see. So the question being is like, as you're going through things like forests and mountains and stuff like that, do you really need to have the ultra settings or the very high settings for the view distance turned on when you're not going to see the effect on it? It's just going to be affecting your system. It's going to hit the performance on your system. Okay. Now this might be more beneficial for someplace like the African plains where you see long distances and stuff like that. But when you're in the mountain terrains and stuff and in the thick of the forest, I don't think it's really necessarily worth it. Now, also, you may be questioning, it's like, does this affect the animals? And here I'm going to put up a couple examples. You see that some screenshots I took from an animal at 600 yards away. These were some pigs I had out there that it doesn't affect them. You can still see them regardless of the different resolution settings that are in play. Okay, here we're going to go over post-processing, which will also touch on hunter sense. So I've chosen a spot here outside of Transylvania, again using the distance and everything that with the sun out there. Usually post-processing affects things like the lighting, the color saturation, things like that, right? In addition, though, for Way of the Hunter here, what it's going to do is also affect the hunter sense. But I did a comparison here to see the what would happen with the post-processing between the earlier time of the day with the sun out there here and later in the afternoon, to see if there's any differences. If you can see a difference, let me know, because personally, I cannot between these two different times. So I wanted to test this even further. So I went to a different location. I have this set up on high right now for comparison, but it's going to cycle through it. But use the water reflections, the light beams through the trees, the glint of the light, the lens flares and stuff like that, and just try to pay attention. But from when I'm going through these tests here between the low, medium, and high, I didn't see anything really significant at all. Next is the hunter sense, which goes from on to half visible off. Here you can see that with it on, there's a little bit of a darkening around the edges of the screen and everything there, right? Which, going through the different settings of low, medium, high, doesn't seem to, again, affect anything. Going from on to half visible, and then also bumping back down the post-processing to low to start through the sequence again, you can see that the blackening around the edges is kind of faded, but as I've gone through the different post-processing, it still doesn't seem like it affects it in any way, shape, or form. Yeah, there's been some blurring here on the outside with the high, or with the on and then the half visible, but other than that, it's really not doing much to it. So coming in and turning the hunter sense off, I'm leaving the post-processing high because what's going to happen is, again, negligible. You can see that the hunter sense is on with the little eye symbol up in the upper right-hand corner with the arrow pointing to it, right? Turn it off, hunter sense is off, but I didn't see any change in the post-processing here, all right? And this is with it on high. So after all the other tests going between high, low, and medium and everything, you're going to see that it doesn't seem like the post-process is doing much. Hunter sense is back on, which you can see with the audio cue up there from the animal out there in the distance. But yeah, it doesn't seem like it does anything. But I want to try some other tests here as well. So here I had just shot at a wolf and got a blood trail. You can see the blood out there glowing in the distance. That's about 375 yards away. Testing out between, again, the different post-processing settings, a low, medium, and a high. I was wanting to see if it had any effect on visually seeing this, right? Again, it doesn't look like it does anything there. It's not even affecting the marker that used to narrow in where you need to hit the animal with the pinpoint accuracy, which in my case is the green dot up. But what you didn't know is that as I got to go check on it, there's this zone right here for a fox, which I went ahead and marked, turned the resolution back down to low for the post-processing. I want to see if maybe there's a distance aspect of things. So I have it marked there. You can see, and you can still watch the glow pop up and stuff like that. So I was thinking maybe it would be something like affecting the range of the post-processing. I found out you can get out to about 110, 115 with the settings on low and still see it glowing there in a little bit, right? You just saw the little like pulse. So after like trying to find the right spot, we went ahead and checked out the other settings. So bumping it up to medium, I was thinking that maybe because at this point I might be able to see it clearer. But no, it's still got the same intensity, same distance. It's not like being brighter at a medium resolution. Pumped it up to high, checked it again. Again, it seems like there's no change on the distance of it. So it's not like really helping out with that. Now, again, I don't know what the purpose of the post-processing is for other than for the 100 cents, but it doesn't seem like the different resolutions seem to be going through and doing a whole lot through the different aspects of things. And here, one more final test. Shot at a chamois. You can see it's over 500 yards away. And then from this distance, you can still see the glow of the blood on the ground with the 100 cents on. So, yeah, I don't know what to say. I just don't think the post-processing does much other than to be used for the 100 cents. This next check is going to be going through the low, medium, and high aspect of the shadows. Now, we're going to start with low. You can see that a little bit of shadows on the ground, some of the trees. Watch and pay attention to how dark the shadows look like in the middle of the trees as well, and then at the base down there under some of the bushes. Right? Went through low, medium, and high. I'm going to do a comparison back and forth between high and low, so you can see the very distinct differences. And then I'm going to test this out also on a couple different areas. So besides the deciduous trees, we're going to do some evergreens here. Now, I'm doing this because it helps to have a context for lots of different settings and visuals and stuff like that to see how it overall affects. Now the evergreens here look pretty good on high. I will admit that. All right, but I'll come back to this again in a second. Here we're in the thick of the forest with the shadows coming on the ground through the trees. We got the low, medium, and high settings. And I gotta say, the high settings do get to look a little bit crisper and clearer as well, but it's also a much darker setting, which is what shadows do, obviously. But it depends on what you're looking for. Now, mind you, here's what I said I was gonna come back. Shadows at a distance to me, when it gets to be on high with the evergreens, I like them a lot, but out here it just seems like it makes the distance darkness a little too dark for me. It's the same thing with the deciduous trees when it gets to this point. So I personally prefer, I think, to go with the middle ground and use the medium here. Gets a good balance between everything and doesn't affect my system as much. All right, this next part is going to be going over the textures, which I found this actually kind of shocking. So again, take with a grain of salt and do what you want with it. But I'm leaving a video portion of it in here real quick with what I did, but I'm going to have a lot of screenshot for comparisons, right? But when I was cycling through the different textures, you would think like it would be more grainy on a lower texture and crisp on the high, but as I was going through them, it didn't really seem to be that way for me. It just seemed like it was pretty consistent as well. All right, so I tried to test out and see if it was going to be on a different resolution, if it make an impact on it or not. So I ended up coming down here after doing a little bit of debate, and I chose the 1280 by 1024 setting. And again, to me, the resolution, yes, is down, but the textures still look to be about the same, relatively speaking, with what I had on my normal video settings. And again, as I cycled through the low, medium, and high, didn't really seem to affect it so much. And I did one more test here as well and cranked it up to max just to see how that would be. But again, the resolutions, the textures seem to be effectively the same with what I had on all the other settings. Now, mind you, I'm just going to let this play here. I have a bunch of numbers 1, 2, and 3 from the low, medium, and high screenshots I took for various different locations. I'll let you determine which ones they are. They're not in the specific order of low, medium, and high. I have them shuffled up, but you tell me whether or not you can tell if there's a difference between the textures. Obviously, textures are what's on objects, okay? That's why I'm using trees. I want to get close up trees with the bark and things. I'm using the stone here. I'm trying to look at the ground and everything, the vehicles and stuff. Like, I'm trying to do all these different tests to see if these textures actually seem to make a difference or not. And from my experience, from what I'm looking at, it doesn't seem to really do much, honestly. So again, turning the textures up and high may be beneficial, may not, or whatever. It's going to be down to you and what you think you can handle with your system. But honestly, again, for the sake of performance, I think that it's really not necessary to crank the textures up on a high settings, especially with the resolutions. If you got a high resolutions, textures and other things that I'll get later with the anti-aliasing, stuff like that, and the pixels size and stuff really becomes negligible for the most part. And so unless you really see something significantly standing out to you, I don't really think this matters, in all honesty. So do with it what you want. Again, I got quite a few more examples here from exteriors. I got a couple interiors as well. Just trying to look at things. I even thought that maybe it might be the textures on the ground underneath things like the grass. So here I start with the road and stuff like that, but I got a shot coming up here in a little bit. That's going to be patchy grass, right? And to see if that would be like the little twigs and bark and stuff like that on the ground under the grass. All this, if you're looking at this, I've obviously talked enough. You've seen all these comparisons. To me, it doesn't seem like it changes and affects anything in any way, shape, or form. So again, choose to do what you want. If you want to set your textures and everything high, you can. But honestly, if you're trying to save on your system processing and just give you best visuals, I think you can crank them down to low. It's just me saying. Anyways, there's some of the ground textures I was talking about, trying to look underneath the grass and stuff like, and see if it had any impact. But none of these settings, none of them seem to like do anything. The only other thing I could think of is that maybe it's affecting the animal textures, but honestly, if that's it, it's very limited. But you can see none of these textures seem to do much. It's all the same if you ask me between low, medium, and high. Alright, this next category of effects, we'll go again through the low, medium, and high. This one actually I have seen some differences, so pay attention to them here as I go through it. Starting out with low, the effects should be affecting things like the insects and the particles in air, right? You can see, I have an example, and it's really hard to determine, but there seems to be a small amount. Pay attention though, specifically right now between the bushes, alright, on the other side of the river, on the right hand side, on low, and then what happens when you get to medium. Boom. And even the trees in the background, they changed from that autumny color with the fall leaves to green, and I don't know why it does that. But again, if you're paying attention to like the little bugs flying through the air or the particles and stuff like that, it seems like it has a little bit more out there than what it was on low. Lastly, you put it on high, and again, it seems like there's more out there, because that's what effects are. It's the things that make the wow factor. Well, in this case, there's not a whole lot. You don't have explosions and stuff, but you do have, in this case, the insects and the things drifting through the breeze. So you can see there's just quite a bit more, it seems like, on high. Now here I come back and try another spot here in the mountains, and if you pay attention again, look at the bushes and the stuff on the ground, as well as the things floating through the air. Those bushes are kind of autumny color, and they will change to green once it goes to medium. But again, also the particles and stuff like that seems to add more to it as it's floating by. It's really hard to tell. But here it's even more critical. If you notice on the medium, even it seems like the evergreens back there kind of changed a little bit. And as I go to high, if you look back in the top left-hand corner at some of the bushes there, it looks like it affects them as well when it gets to high. So there you go. It looks like they got like a little smaller, maybe some more shadows and stuff like that. But so there's definitely something going on with the effects, okay? With in regards to the shrubbery and bushes and stuff, it's not really affecting grass and things. But besides that, it should, like I said, be all these little things blowing in the breeze that just give a little bit more atmosphere to the game. So this next thing is going to go through all the anti-aliasing settings, including the NVIDIA-specific DLSS and the AMD settings, the FSR. Mind you, I'm using a NVIDIA card. I do not have an AMD card, so take that, again, another grain of salt as we're watching these things. As well, be aware that this is probably a better test to be doing while there's movement going on, things like that. But for the sake of repetition and to be able to see things clearly, I have static images here to show what's going on. Now, from this far distance, you probably can't see the effect of anti-aliasing that much. There's probably tons of videos out there that are better for explaining it and stuff. But the sake of way, Hunter, I'll try to do the best as possible. But the main thing is it's to get rid of the jagginess on the edges of things that, like the mountain ranges back there, or the top of the signpost, or even the posts themselves going up and down. And I can try to give you an example of that. But something else to notice, though, is going through it, is it also seems to affect the clouds out here as well. On some of the different settings, as it gets to the exterior portion of the cloud, you can see it's almost like pixelated on the cloud surface. Something I thought was kind of interesting, depending on what different settings you have or that you're using. So here's what I'm talking about. If you come in, I got a closer view. If you look over on the post of the information board there, going up and down, you can see that there's a little bit like a ripple effect on the up and down posts on the right-hand side specifically. But if you pay attention as you're adding in the different anti-aliasing, that effect gets to be minimized to the point where you don't see anymore. That's the purpose of anti-aliasing and stuff. Now, mind you, again, if you're walking around seeing things like a fence that is repeating stuff, or at a specific angle, that would probably be a better example as well of how well anti-aliasing is affecting you. But again, I can only do so much here to try to give the best examples. So pick which one you feel is best. Anti-aliasing also affects your performance of your system, so if you don't want to have everything cranked up high, or if you can't, again, choose the one that's best for you. But you can see the effects of them here. Some of them are really rather negligible. Here we're going to check motion blur both on and off. With it on, you can see kind of what's going on here, but to really emphasize it, I'm going to slow it down. And as you move, you see how it blurs the screen, okay? That's what the motion blur does, is it adds that in there. I'm going to have a still shot here as well. This is what it's looked like. It's a still shot of motion blur. And it's kind of hard to deal with. Some people don't like motion blur. So with it on, you have that effect right there, right? If you turn it off, it gets rid of it. It makes it a little bit crisp and clear. Me, personally, I like to turn it off because, again, with it on, it's hard on the eyes. For me and for a lot of people, they just don't like to have it. So again, choose if you want it or not. I personally choose off, but I can see the benefit of it, especially for games like racing and things, to give you a sense of speed. But out here, just when you're like going from one direction to another, adding that motion blur in, to me, is not necessary. But again, to each their own. Choose what you like. I'd rather have turned off. And finally, we're going to do sharpness. This is a slider that goes from 0 to 100%. I'm going to show you at 0, 50, and 100% the comparisons between them. At 0, to me, the rocks are relatively sharp and stuff like that, but what stands out is the moss on top of the rock. It looks like it's soft. You add a little bit of texture or the sharpness into it, you kind of start losing that softness on the moss out there. And then finally, if you add 100% in, it's like it's gone. It doesn't seem to be soft moss. While the rocks are crisp and clear and sharp, the moss isn't. It's the same thing with the trees in the background. So Go through and look at the difference between 0 and 100%. Choose what you like. I like to choose the 0. Now here I just wanted to show some of the glitches that happened as I was filming this here, and I found out it's because of changing through all the different video settings a lot, so maybe this will help you out as well. Here you can see there's no water in the river. Mind you, as I'm walking through it, you can still hear my footsteps through it. There should be water here, but because of all my cycling through the different video settings to make this video, apparently it causes and instills glitches into the game, which can be cleared up simply by exiting out of the game and then loading it back in. So in the same spot there where that water was at, as I come back in, you'll see that this gets cleared up. See, the water's now back there. Perfectly fine. But just be aware, if you're cycling through and you have graphical errors or glitches in the game, maybe just walking out and reset and be fine. I had this similar situation. I first saw it here at this place when I was up at this cabin. Saw these little water effects on the rocks, but there was no water in the water here, or in the river bed here, so I thought this was a strange thing. It wasn't until later when I saw that other video I just showed you that that's what was going on. So I learned it, but it can happen anywhere. As well as you also see like the little dots trailing behind the things flying in the sky there. That's a particle effect that's happening from all these graphical glitches. And then here's the last one I have, a little river that's like way out of the way. It should be down there off to the right hand side. So yeah. So there you have it, folks. Those are the different video settings in the game. I hope it helps you to understand better of what's going on and maybe choose the appropriate settings for yourselves. I'm working on the 3840 by 2160 resolution, which is pretty much 4K. And I'm going to show you the comparison between everything turned on and the choices that I choose to make, which is not everything completely maxed out. All right. And again, be aware that the differences in the time of the day of my filming this that will affect the lighting on it. Don't pay so much attention to the lighting. That's just, again, the time of the day aspect of things. Pay more attention to the quality of the visuals, the foliage, the distance, the shadows, things like that. I can have almost the same visual appearance with less things turned up than it is to have everything maxed out. And as such, I allow my system to work a little bit better, it's a little smoother. I don't have things popping in as I'm like looking around. I had some of those issues before with everything maxed out that I would have, it would be slow to load the textures in and everything as I shifted and looked around left and right. I didn't like that. So that's why I went through and decided to do this video and do a comparison and find out what could be best. Now, mind you, I'm also operating on a, not the top of line video card. I'm using a NVIDIA GeForce RTX 3060 Ti, so obviously it's not the top of the line graphics card out there, but I think it does well, and I just choose not to strain my system. So again, I hope this has been a helpful video for you guys to see the differences and make the appropriate choices for yourself. I wish you guys all the best. Till next time, happy hunting everyone. Take care. God bless. Bye. By the way, I saw this and I want to show it to you guys, the back of the white Jeep with all these stickers all over it. If you pay attention, there's stickers on there from the different reserves out there, from Lintukoto, Transylvania, Matariki, Tikamoon Plains, and stuff. I think it's kind of fun because I wonder if the next map that they ever release, if they'll put another sticker on the back of the truck for that as well. So maybe something to pay attention to. I think that's kind of a nice little Easter egg. So there you go. I just want to share that with you. Have fun, guys. Take care. Bye.